This is the Pro Audio Suite podcast. Quick Bites.
Welcome to another Pro Audio Suite Quick Bite. This is Home Booth Month. This week, we're replying to a letter that Robbo got.
Yeah. We all got it. It came in on the website. It's from a guy called Brent May, who I'm presuming is in Melbourne because, like you at the moment, AP, he's locked down.
Yes.
We'll get to his question in a minute, but I thought the first part of his letter to us was really cool because he starts off by saying, "I'm absolutely nothing to do with the audio industry," which made me stop and go, huh? But I found your...
He's going to sell us something.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
But I found your podcast while looking for reviews of the Rodecaster Pro, and I've since listened to every episode. Some of what you guys talk about goes way over my head, and yet I tune in every week. The content never disappoints. So that's pretty cool. But
very.
The thing that he wrote to us that inspired this conversation was, not sure if it's ever been covered, but has anyone found out from Rode if they plan on releasing an AI2 to go up against the 2i2? Or even something to go up against a Zoom MP4. I'd love something as versatile as a P4 or a 2i2, but with the build quality of a Rode product, always been a massive fan of Rode's video mics. My Video Mic Pro Plus is my go-to for all my video work and would love to keep my products within the Rode family. So,
okay, well, he's tangentially related to audio. He's a video guy.
Yeah.
But can I just mention that I did actually send an email to Rode and I got a reply from Nick Leonard. Mm-hmm. And Nick said, "Hey, mate, unfortunately, I can't give out any info on possible product releases. Sorry."
I mean, some cool stuff's coming.
Yeah, that's right.
But I would have to kill you.
Yeah, he said, "My lips are sealed." Ha, ha, ha.
There you go.
No, I'm sure. I mean, now that they've got the intellectual property, the design, the circuit design, and the massive sales numbers. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They of course. I mean, the AI one is just their first audio interface, and then the Procaster, and the Procaster is a very specific kind of interface. But the market is just on fire even after COVID. Yeah. I mean, there's a point in the middle of COVID where everything was sold out. You couldn't get your hands on a Presonus or a Focusrite. And so they would be foolish not to expand that product line.
Yeah. So here's the question for this week's episode, though.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Is, given the conversation we had a few weeks ago about expectations in the booth and being able to replay audio and stuff like that, should voiceover artists in particular be looking at a mixer or just an interface then?
I think that, first of all, when you look at the universal audio interface, it is a mixer. That's what that crazy console app is. It's a mixer. It's a mixer inside the computer. But the better interfaces, as they get more flexible, they have some sort of mixer built into them that have the capabilities of being able to handle your different monitoring needs. They might have a loopback function in them. So these are the RME interfaces, the Audient interfaces,
Antelope,
universal audio, Antelope, all the better interfaces, and even all the Focusrite ones, they have some sort of mixer built into them, because if not, basically what you're left with is just like a little analog low latency monitor. And so if that's all you need is just your microphone and you need to monitor yourself, that's great. But as you more and more start to work with remote situations, I've got clients on whatever it might be, Google Hangouts or Source Connect or something else, these interfaces that have some sort of mixing capability in them help, because if not, you're going over to a DAW and some other application that still has a mixer in it to handle your monitoring needs.
Mm.
Would you use if we're talking about what Robert's talking about, then would you say that a Rodecaster would do that for someone?
The Rodecaster is great, except it goes into the category of overkill. And one of the things that bothers me about Rodecaster Pro for a voice actor is it's actually takes a few steps to not use processing. It tends to just have processing on. So you have to know how to go in there and turn all that stuff off. And so for that reason, I don't think it's ideal for a voiceover situation. But once you know how to use it, learn how to use it and set it up correctly, it's great. And it can do everything you would ever need and more, obviously. It's far more capable. I just wish they would make something that's halfway between the AI1 and the Rodecaster Pro. I want those to make a baby, and make it like the AI 2 Pro or something, and maybe have some basic processing, or maybe like the loopback feature, or, have a few more bells and whistles, but still be something compact that's portable and not super complicated. So I'm hoping there's some stuff in the Rode Skunkworks that is in that vein, but there's so much potential, in terms of what they've already developed and what could come. It's the Rodecaster Pro's been out 2 years and a few months, right? They're still pushing new firmware updates that give it all new features 2 years later for free.
Yeah.
No additional cost.
There's this concept of an interface that has software in it. Look at what Apogee just pushed out recently with their, it's like a touchscreen interface built into the interface with processing on it. I think it has a lot to do with what do you need. If you're just in a booth and you don't have any external speakers, your needs are fewer. If you don't have any external sources like Hangouts and all those things, your needs are fewer. But if you have a booth, but you also have a control room situation, there's things that the Rodecaster does in particular that are unique to more of a broadcast situation, which is more what the voice talent finds themselves in compared to a traditional music recording situation, which is what most of these interfaces are designed for, the music recording situation. So things like when I mute the mic, it opens up the speakers, but when I open up the mic, it goes back to headphones automatically.
Exactly.
These are broadcast type features that the Rodecaster has.
But it's really, really helpful for a voice actor.
Exactly.
If you have everything in one room, if your control room and booth are the same, like if you're a one room studio, that's really, really helpful. It's just a workflow thing, but it's so nice to just have the monitor speakers cut off, and you never have to worry about feedback or loops and stuff.
Right.
And the monitoring is so much simpler and easier to understand, on a Rodecaster Pro than it is on an Apollo. Like the one thing
Apollo is like so flexible, but it blows everybody's brain trying to figure out the Apollo. And most people who own an Apollo are scared of their own interface.
Yes, and I set up a lot of them, and I actually get people to return them on the regular. Actually, like I just got this. I'm like, why? And they're like,
it's too much.
Maybe I shouldn't. So
you can do a ton with it, but you got to know what you want to do, and you got to have a reason to actually want all that because it's a little bit too much.
The monitoring side of it is perplexing. The RME is also perplexing, but in some ways it's better, so they all have their own nuances. But I think most voice actors still don't need anything resembling a mixer at all, but some will find the additional flexibility for what they're doing really, really helpful.
The classic situation going back to the days of ISDN and just when this was all, you used to have voice actors that didn't have a computer. They just had a Mackie, say 1202, their ISDN, their phone patch, and their mic pre in there.
And a DAT maybe.
And a DAT machine or some sort of USB recorder if they were a little bit more modern. But you still ended up with the same situation with a lot of these voice actors, which was someone came in, like George, set this mixer up. And now the voice actors are like, for instance, what would happen to me often is they would have this mixer set up with everything, and now they are introducing their laptop into their mixer. And you're like, okay, well, we're going to need an auxiliary send. Can you plug a cable in here? And they're like, oh no, I can't touch it. I don't want to look at the mixer. I'm scared of it. And it's like the same thing. It's like, yeah, the mixer is allowing you to do all these things, but if you are going to have something that you're intimidated by, you might as well not have it because it's going to bite you, and you either get to know it and you understand it and you take that leap to know what you have and to use it properly. If not, you probably don't need it.
Like 10 years ago, I did a survey of my followers online or whatever, saying, what would be the perfect mixer? What would it have? And what would you pay for it? And, of course, the what would you pay for it was usually much too low, right? So, because I was literally doing a little market research. Could I go out to a company and have the ultimate voiceover production mixer made?
You and I have thought the same thing.
Yeah, and the bottom line was it was always going to be much too expensive. It's going to
end up being $1,000, and everyone wants to pay $300 for it.
I just couldn't do it. The Rodecaster Pro gets pretty damn close. It's pretty close. It's just that an actor doesn't need 4 mic preamps, right? So it just has things that an actor doesn't need.
And they don't need buttons to go boom.
Right. An actor doesn't need playback buttons, right? So if you take out 3 or 2 preamps, maybe have it two.
Mm-hmm.
Take
one
out
for the control room and
playbacks.
one for your booth, one for your talkback outside your booth, maybe.
And take out all the playback features. I still like the internal recording, so I'd like to keep that.
Yep.
But it's great
and the
for
Bluetooth
backup
stuff.
Yeah, and knock it down to a smaller size. Sell it for $399 or $240. I don't know. How cheap can you get it? That to me is extremely compelling. So if you're listening, Rode, I hope that's what you're building in your Skunkworks labs right now.
Well, they're not building anything though, George, apparently, because they can't talk about
That's right.
it.
No, nothing is being built whatsoever.
Yeah.
Don't expect anything to come from them.
Yeah.
There's your
Oh my God, I set up so many studios around Mackie mixers. I mean, that was just the absolute norm.
the Mackie
and
mixer.
I had little whiteout marks all over the thing, these knobs go here. And,
The Universal Audio Twin is the new Mackie 1202.
yeah, kind of. Yeah. In a
It's
virtual.
the exact same thing. It's like, I have it. It does everything I want. I'm completely scared of it, and I don't know what I actually have.
Yeah.
And
It's totally
so
true.
frustrating because
I just set up one today right before the session. You know what we did? We set up 3 presets. What did they do? They set the gain at 3 different levels. That was it. I set up one for spoken. I set up one for her audiobook performance, and I set up one for video games. And I said, these are optimal gain settings that will help you make it easier to have repeatable settings. And to me, that is a big advantage. I love that the actor can have a repeatable gain setting every time. It's always exactly the same.
I think that you have taken your setup and abusing the channel 1 input to actually be aux send 1. I think the guys at Universal Audio are like, even they're like, what the fuck? I didn't even think you could do this with our product.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't.
I don't remember where I heard that, Robert. I mean, because years ago I was trying to figure out how to hack that.
And who gave you that idea?
And I don't remember if it was another engineer that thought of it, but I found that online, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is brilliant."
People would do that to make a talkback prior to them having a talkback built into it.
Right.
That's how they would do it.
It shows the ridiculous flexibility that you do get with the Apollo, and it's so complex that
if it
most
just had
people
the
don't
other
even know
half
what
of
the-
Nexus, if it just had the send part of Nexus, instead,
another hack they do with the Apollo to turn it into a true audio mixer. If you want to make an Apollo into a standard run-of-the-mill mixer, you change channel 1 and 2 input to monitor left and right. And then now what it's doing is everything that you hear, it records. So now it's just like a live band recording mixer. So it takes away all the confusion of aux sends and all this stuff. And basically what you hear is what's recorded.
say you take channel 1 and 2 input and you make it the monitor output. And so now everything that you put into the mixer is just stereo out record. Yeah.
It just records a stereo mix of the mixer.
The thing is like a
and
spaghetti router. You can do anything you want.
Yeah, but it works. It works. It turns it into a mixer. It just becomes like, oh, it works the way like someone that doesn't understand mixers that much, but it turns it into a broadcast mixer is what it
turns
does.
it into,
like,
right. Yeah.
If I turn up my first channel, I'm going to get louder in my headphones, but the recording will also get louder. You know what I mean? Because what blows people's minds about mixers that they don't understand is the digital mixers can be set up in pre and post fader mode. So when you turn up and down the mic in your headphones, it doesn't affect the recording level. And that is like, that just makes
if you're
people's
doing
head
it from
explode.
the aux send. One thing that's kind of funny about the Apollo, I think that makes it hard is that its matrix is not a good matrix. When you are changing monitor output to be input 1 and 2, it's that window, that setup window is so shitty, I think. It's not clear what's going on in there. You know what I mean?
It's like learning a language. Right? It's like, I don't like the language particularly, but I had to learn how to speak it. And then I figured it out and now I get it. But if you told me to do the same exact thing on an RME total mix, I'd be banging my head against the wall.
But have you ever used the like, I think you would love, like, get like a Motu 828 ES or something. You can turn that thing into all kinds of knots, and it's great.
Yeah, I have very little experience with the Motu stuff, but their stuff is known to be super reliable and, you know,
I've got the D112, which is like one rack space with like 112 channels of digital routing and
Maddie
mixing.
or something.
It's got MADI, ADAT, and optical. And then it's got the whole low latency mixer. But when you get into your routing ins and outs, it just does it in the classic like matrix, like a graph paper. Inputs on one leg, outputs on the other leg, follow one to the other and like cross the lines, and there you go.
You know what else does that? Behringer's digital mixers, which I have set up for VOBS. We used to use one. And you would never believe that a $300 mixer, it's called the XR12, you would never believe that this thing could do what it does.
With Wi-Fi.
It has Wi-Fi. You can control it from an iPad or an iPhone or a desktop. It's got a matrix inside just like that. It's
always ridiculously feature-filled for what you
It's insane what this thing can do. It's got aux sends. It's got effects, 2 main stereo reverb effects buses. It's got, compression EQ and everything on every channel. $300 and it's mind-boggling. And if you get the better ones, they also have a USB interface. So you get
and they have a recorder
18 channel. Yeah, you have like an 18 channel USB interface. It's just, but you have to learn how to use it. I mean, it's complicated as the rest of them. But the cool thing is, if you learn the $300 one, you can go and operate the big boy, the $3,000 one.
It's like any of them. Same. If you understand your Apollo Twin, you're going to be able to work with like an Apollo 16. If you understand not the Motu M2, but if you get like a Motu, say, Travel Light one, it's going to have the same matrix. You're going to understand the Motu way of doing things. If I guess RME is the same way. Every company has their basic way of doing things, and it all boils down to the same stuff, but it's how the GUI is presented. And honestly,
Motu does it best, huh?
I think Motu does it best. I think UA does it worse. Mm-hmm. But UA's got the best looking mixer. It looks like brushed metal and all that crap.
Right.
Like once you're out of the setup and you're just into the mixer itself, UA's got a pretty nice feeling mixer.
Robbo, when's the last time you used a physical analog mixer in your production?
Oh, jeez. Easily 15 years ago. Freelancing at Foxtel, which is a satellite TV set up over here. They had, or actually they still have, 24-track Icon consoles. But that was 10 years ago, and that would be the last mixer I used, probably.
Physical
hands-on
desk,
faders, mixers.
Console.
Yeah. I have a Faderport Pro here that I use really just for ducking music and stuff like that, but I haven't used a mixer.
See, I, on the other hand, installed a Amic Big into my studio just recently. But that was a $50,000 mixer that I just bought for $2,000 or $3,000.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
How many channels is it? Is this a large format?
Well, I bought a 44, but I took out the right side channel, so I just have 28 loaded because I have the workstation, the computer sitting in the other side of it. So it's
okay. So half of it's like a desk for your gear, and then the rest of it's the faders.
You may have saved $48,000 on the purchase price, but you've probably spent that in your electricity bills for the first couple of
beyond
months.
that, in the stupid ass cabling, I literally had to spend $2,000 in
The wiring harnesses.
It's got 300 patch points in it to go to my patch bay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god! Does it use those giant EDAC multi-pins on the back?
No. This one's all separate quarter inch and XLR, and then I have it going to 3-pin EDAC on my TT patch bays.
When I set up my first home studio in 2001, I spent $4,500 getting a great guy called Terry Fogg. G'day, Foggy, if you're listening. He came over. He's a wiring guy. He came over and wired up my studio. I had an O2R going into Pro Tools, and I had all that shit.
Some people still use those. They love those things.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't. And the point I was going to make was these days, thanks to AP, I have a big knob. And
you're so jealous of mine.
Yes, I was so jealous of his that AP gave me one. In the nicest possible way.
They
was very
fucked that
and
one
he was
up.
very
they didn't
gentle.
put any dim on it, and they They put no dim on it, and they put no slate output on the talkback, and they screwed up the product.
Yeah, well, there's a dim on this one. There's a dim on the one AP sent me.
Yeah, it's the new one, I think.
Oh, the new one.
Maybe the new one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, the point I was going to make was these days you could pretty much pack up my studio besides the monitors and screens in a box. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
The whole thing's on a laptop now. I mean, God, you should have seen what I was driving around in college. My college setup, which I started in high school, was, first of all, I had a Tascam 688, which is a cassette 8-track.
Is that that's a cassette 8-track. Yeah.
Cassette 8-track with an inline 10-channel mixer. So it was really a 20-channel mixer built into it. And it had actually had a little digital matrix that you could do your busing from.
It's pretty cool.
And then I set this up, I bolted it. Literally, I took the feed off and I bolted it to this table that was about the size of a door. And then I built 2 racks on either side of it with a rack hovering over it. So I had 2 10-space racks and then a little 4-space rack above it. And on the left side of the 10-space rack, I had a TT patch bay. I got a spec 16-channel 3-band EQ, which I just permanently jammed into every insert of this thing. So I had real EQ across the board. Bunch of like Alesis 3630 compressors, my Lexicon LXP 1s and 5s. This was a whole 8-track studio. It weighed 400 pounds. So in my station wagon, I built a piece of plywood with casters on it facing up. So you could roll it into the back of the station wagon like it was a hearse. And then I would drive up to a band's house and we'd haul this thing inside and plug everything in and bam, recording studio. And my whole idea was when I was sitting with my friend in high school, I just drew on a napkin. I had this whole studio set up, everything, and I just had one cable coming off of it with one plug. Because what I got sick of was every time I'd go to a band's place to go record them, it would take me 3 hours of like setting up everything, you know?
That's so funny that you did that. Because I had a Soundcraft Spirit 24, which was like their cheap Ghost console.
Yeah.
And a 1973 Eldorado camper. The funky aluminum siding.
Yeah.
And Tascam D88s and, a bunch of insert effects and patch bays. But it was all in an RV. And I had this 24-channel ISO snake thing I could pull into the venue.
Whip it out into the band.
Yeah. That was how I started my studio business. But I was doing something similar. In college, my friend had a 24-channel Tascam board and an 8-track half-inch reel-to-reel.
I have a Tascam 38.
Yes. And I would bring it into venues and try to record bands live to half-inch reel-to-reel.
So the cave, hilarious. right? You get bills for the cave recording, right?
Yeah.
So before I built that table, that whole recording desk, my studio was in this basement studio in Muncie, Indiana. And the way they built the basements was when you looked at the inside of the basement, it just looked like rocks, like different size rocks just piled on top of each other. It was like an old 1920s house or something. So my studio's down there, and we had gotten we would go to carpet stores. And actually, we should do this for our sound absorption. We would just go to the back of the carpet store and get all their remnants. Yeah, and we would just in burlap and stuff it in the ceiling and tack it all up, deaden that whole basement. And that's where the cave came from. That's the name of the cave, because it was the Cave Studios. And I was recording bands for $10 an hour. And, I got some recordings off that 8-track, which is a wonder of science that some people thought came off a 2-inch deck. I would I'd mic up the drums, send it all down to 8 tracks, then mix it, and then just change all the busing down to 2 tracks. And then, bam, record drums down to stereo. So first pass is like drums to stereo, bass, guitar, scratch, vocals. Right. And then eventually I got my Mac 2FX with an audio media card in it that could do 4 tracks of audio. Yeah. So I would then get a track at time code, and I would dump 7 tracks mixed down to 2 tracks on the computer, grab a new cassette, stripe that with time code, and now I'm playing 7 more tracks along with the computer that had my other 7 tracks bounced down to 2. If I ever wanted to change my original 2 tracks, I'd just go get the other cassette, redo my mix.
I love
it. Like laborious.
kids these days,
They don't know
they
what
have
they have.
1,000 tracks and they don't know what the fuck
All
to
of
do
that.
with them all.
Yeah.
All of that is
Exactly.
in my laptop from 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Like all that and more
totally.
is in my
Yeah.
single USB cable, 8 channels of mics. And Pro
Well, do you want some sad news?
Sure. Let's end
Okay.
on a sad note.
Let's end on a sad note. As you know, I bought an interface, the SSL 2,
It broke.
and with that purchase, they gave away, free of charge, mind you, a bunch of plugins. There was the native channel strip, the flex verb vocal strip, the X compressor, EQ2, phase V6, saturator version 6, and valve compressor version 6.
Mm-hmm.
And they've all expired.
Oh no, it was a freemium thing, and they gave it to you,
Yes.
let you play with it, and then they all expire.
Yep.
Oh,
Dirty rats.
Well, I get so pissed off when you install a UA interface and it installs every freaking plugin known demand that they have, and they're all demos, and then you have to watch your workstation rip through them and go like, I'm never going to use any of these.
No, it's I hate that too very much.
Well,
I hate that an update is 3 gigabytes because you have to download every
The
bloody
whole thing.
plugin.
Yeah.
that
Well,
is-
that's interesting. It's complete opposite to what RØDE do with their Rodecaster,
It is.
where they give you free stuff and you keep it, and these guys tease
making
you
it
with
better.
free stuff and then take it away.
Yeah, no, I mean, Rode is every company should do what Rode does. I mean,
Yeah.
they just they take a product that's already affordable to begin with and then layer on new features and not ruin the original product.
Yeah.
That is not easy to do. I can tell you from a guy who runs a company and has to use a lot of software to run my business on the web. Companies cannot figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
Well, that was fun. Is it over?
The Pro Audio Suite recorded using Rode NTG5s and Source Connect. Edited by Andrew Peters and mixed by Voodoo Radio Imaging with tech support from George the Tech Whittam. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and join in the conversation on our Facebook group. To leave a comment, suggest a topic, or just say g'day, drop us a note at our website, proaudiosuite.com.